Just wondering, when I look at the salaries, 400 and, well, with your benefits and all, that's about 458,000. What kind of how many employees does that cover?
21.
21 employees.
We have about 9 full-time and the rest part-time.
Is all the food banks have this kind of expenditure on wages and salaries? That magnitude?
Actually, they have more.
Is that right? Because I'm looking. I know that Glenn's very involved with St. Vincent de Paul. I'm not sure how that is compared.
Recognizing, though, Councillor Rivette, that we have a thrift store as well, so part of the salaries goes towards the thrift store.
So is this thrift store generating enough money to offset? It's worthwhile keeping the thrift store, so I'm trying to say.
48% of our revenue is coming from the thrift store, and that covers all our salaries.
All your salaries. So you get $500,000 a year in thrift out of the thrift store?
Almost. We are doing on average $35,000 a month thrift store sales, gross.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Sampson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You didn't mention anything about a treasurer with all this money you're handling.
We operate with a board of directors. We do have a treasurer, yes.
Right.
And we also have an accounts person as well on payroll.
Is there many children not benefiting with this back to school program?
Generally speaking, we do provide over 100 backpacks a year, and we provide 400 to 500 snowsuits a year.
Right, but did I not hear that?
We are considering closing down those 2 programs this year.
In any other programs?
No.
So what would it entail to keep this program going?
Our snowsuit fund costs us almost $20,000 a year.
20,000. And you said that the boiler's gone. Have you got a cost on the boiler?
Yes. To replace a piece will cost us about $5,000. To replace the boiler, which we eventually need to do, will cost us $40,000.
And now the truck's gone.
No, we replaced the engine last year. That was an unforeseen cost.
Do you ever ask for donations from different car agencies or anything like that to help out with maybe to donate a truck and have the advertised?
Definitely, we're always out in the community asking for money for a variety of things.
I thank you for the report, for the work you do, and the people you service. And it's just fantastic, the people that get help. I've been there myself. I've been to the thrift store. It's just beautiful to see the people going in for lunch. And thank you on behalf of the city for the work you do.
Thank you, Councillor Sampson.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. One hardly knows where to begin because as I look at your operation over the years, what I see is that, and in the context of upper levels of government, what I see the pattern is being they have been making cuts, and you are the last resource that people who experience those cuts go to make up what they've lost through other means of support. So I see your resources being stretched all the time just by way of government program cuts. But also, it seems to me you've probably experienced a heightening of your of demand on you because other agencies like the Salvation Army used to have a soup kitchen as well. Now my understanding is that they have cut that out. So people who used to eat there obviously are doing without or going to you because they're sure not getting any extra from social services because they have, they were the first line of cuts sort of thing. So has that, you must have noticed an impact there. And is there anybody else in town who feeds people as you do? Like does Vincent de Paul feed people?
No. They have smaller food banks. We are the largest food bank soup kitchen in Cornwall, and the only soup kitchen, as far as I know, in Cornwall. And we are open, again, 363 days a year. So there's like 2 days that we are unable to cover. Yeah.
So, and it just seems to me you're at a desperate impasse when you consider cutting out the snowsuit program. I know when I'm on the board, so I just, in interest of disclosure there, when I heard you say that, the implications of that are, I guess a kid can live without a snowsuit, they just don't go out and play anymore. You know, that's not desperation, although they still have to go outside at recess and freeze, that you don't get to stay in if you haven't got a warm coat. But food, that's just an absolute essential. And I think that we see this pattern in charities more and more being asked to pick up what should be, I believe, responsibility of government. And that's where I see you in your appeal to us. I think you do a super job, and I can understand why you're here. You're also the poster organization for what happens when you accept an old building because it's all you can afford, and you're delivering an essential service, but your infrastructure costs, like your infrastructure is crumbling as much as the infrastructure in the cities across the country, you know, that you need massive infusion of government money, and the money just isn't there. So, don't know what to say except keep on doing the great work you're doing. And I anticipated when they had these cuts coming and announced to the community startup fund that there was going to have to be a change somehow in the way we deliver services. And I noticed the City of Ottawa, you mentioned that they supply 10% of the cost to food banks locally. They also passed at their city council level a response to the loss of the community startup, and that was that they actually set some money aside to make up the difference, because if people lack the absolute basic essentials, not only does the community not look like a nice place to live, it becomes a much more dangerous place to live. Mm-hmm. So I was interested I'm wondering if you know of any other cities besides Ottawa who have actually made that move and gone into supporting food banks. And
not at the moment, but I will be researching that for sure.
yeah, I would think that at this time every city across the province is looking to see how they're going to make up that difference. Thank you. If I think of any others, I'll.
Councillor Thibault?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you. I heard you mention that you only serve residents of Cornwall. Am I right in my interpretation?
No, we do serve SD&G. Actually, we serve Glengarry and some of Stormont. However, the majority of our clients are residents of Cornwall. I would say 95%.
So, I guess my question as a result of that is the fact that we're in SD&G. What exists in the counties when it comes to similar services as what you provide?
The House of Lazarus is a food bank and thrift store. That's out in Winchester and Mountain. And also there is St. Vincent de Paul in Alexandria. Okay. And I do believe there are some church groups like in Morrisburg and Long Sault helping out, but they're not as promoted as we are, and they're very small scale.
So you mentioned South Glengarry and North Glengarry. Mm-hmm. That you provide services
if
for?
They come to us, or they can go to Alexandria as well.
Do you expect to make a recommendation or a proposal to those particular municipalities to share some of your costs as well?
Not at this very moment, but I will look into it, because we don't serve 95% of people. The clients that come to us is Cornwall based.
I guess my last question sort of dovetails on the comments that I was hearing from my colleagues, is that a lot of what you are having to deal with is as a result of decisions made by the provincial government in reductions of transfer payments to the municipalities. And as a result, when that happens, somebody's got to pick up the other end of it. And that becomes responsibility of the city as well as organizations like yours. And I guess in the next few months, maybe Councillor Clermont can have a word with Ms. Wynne as to some adjustments that need to be made in some of the ways that they do business as a Liberal government. Thank you.
Councillor Sanson?
Yeah, you were mentioning that a lot of stress is put on your organization by the stuff that's being dumped there that you have to get rid of. Maybe you could qualify what could be considered as a donation at the outside instead of staff going through it. and get stressed out and you don't have enough staff? I mean, is there any way of qualifying what donation should be?
It's a bigger issue than that. We have people who leave donations outside. They get rained on, they get snowed on, they get picked through, that kind of thing. So that's an issue. So we're always working on educating the community as to what we need and what we would like. And basically gently used clothing, gently used appliances, things that are in working order and maybe you're just upgrading at home. So we do educate as much as we can. And some of the bags of donations that we receive, we just cannot put them in our store to sell. They're not sellable. So, you know, we're working on educating as much as possible.
And what about more boxes there at the center itself? I know I've gone there and everything still. Where do you leave it after hours?
Well, we're open Saturdays and we're open Thursday evenings, so we really encourage people to just drop off their donations directly to us. We have a dock and we have someone working there while we're open, so we have people who can help with the donations, and we do pick up. So we encourage people to donate during our time, and we don't take broken items. We don't have a repair shop and stuff like that, so it's just educating.
Yeah. And what about approaching different service clubs? Have the Knights or different organizations volunteer any money?
Yes, we do get a fair amount of support from service clubs, depending on the time of year. I mean, we work with the service club councils for the Christmas baskets. We work in partnership. You know, Rotary Club provides us with funding during different times or for projects, that kind of thing. So we receive a lot of donations from a lot of different organizations and people. It's just the burden of our building and the stress of the increase in numbers, that kind of thing. I mean, it's occurring as we speak.
And that includes the churches?
And the churches, yes.
Right. Thank you.
Councillor Klima?
Thank you for your presentation.
You're welcome.
And more importantly, thank you for the crucial work that you do. I think we can't imagine what Cornwall would be like if you weren't here doing the work that you do. So thank you. I have a couple of questions. It always strikes me that it's interesting to be reminded that you need to go out and buy food. You don't receive everything as donations. You actually have a food bill. And you mentioned eggs, but it's not just eggs that have been increasing in price. Several food items have increased in price. So I imagine there's been huge pressure in terms of that in the last year, 2 years?
Couple of years. We don't provide meat anymore because we cannot afford it in our food budget. We used to be able to give hamburger and the like, and so we had to cut that out. Food alone, the prices have risen. Generally speaking, in other communities, food banks receive about 80% of their food from the community and only spend 20% of their food line budget. We have always been the reverse, and we are working towards changing that, educating the community, providing toolkits. If people want to go out and do food drives on our behalf, what do we really want, what we don't want, that kind of thing, because we really truly believe in providing our clients with the best source of food as possible.
And you've used social media and media in general very well to bring awareness around that, and you've had specific drives as well, which is helpful because people are very generous and want to give, but we need sometimes to know how to do that. So you've done a good job there. How many volunteers do you have total, and who coordinates all of the volunteers, or is it left to each department to coordinate the specific volunteers in the department, or do you do that as the executive director?
We have a volunteer coordinator, a full-time basis, and she coordinates between 100 to 150 volunteers on a weekly basis. And it's not an easy job because a lot of volunteers, there's different generations of volunteers, and so sometimes they don't show up, or sometimes they're snowbirds and they're away for 3 months, so there's a lot of coordination. And what happens is when volunteers do not show up, the volunteer coordinator actually does the job. We used to have a team support worker who would fill in those gaps. However, when that person left, we didn't fill in that to not increase our salaries, which is always a big point of contention for people.
Of course. Yeah.
from a governance perspective, you mentioned the board. Does your board have a strategic plan? I don't know if it does, eh? And
We did one in 2012.
okay, so like, what's your long-term plan financially in terms of sustainability? Do you see the city as being an important ongoing resource, or how do we as a city fit into your strategic plan?
I have it here, I think. I know in our strategic plan we basically address sustainability, as the center does not have a sustainability plan, which is what we're working on this year, which was what part of the Ontario Trillium Fund was for. And through that whole process of analysis and research and what best fits for us, because we know that we cannot get away from donations, we know that we cannot get away from food drives and events and that kind of thing. We have to, we know that we have the same level of donors still donating to us. They're just not donating as much money due to the economy. It just happens that way. But we have a constant level of donors. In the plan, in the strategic plan, we are going to take this year to analyze and research what's the best for the center moving forward. We have an old building we have to deal with that is, you know, we are already hearing the people telling us, the engineers saying to us that we need to change our pipes in this building. It's crumbling, things are breaking every day, and it's not just because of the age, but it's because of the wear and tear of people coming in and out. So that will be part of the whole process.
Thank you for that. Just following up on one of Councillor McDonald's last questions about Ottawa, giving 10%, I think 10% of the food bank budget comes from the municipality. I'd be very interested in seeing whatever research you have once you look at other cities, because if we're going to be looking at that, we need to know. It's helpful if we know what other municipalities are doing, especially municipalities our own size or similar size, so that we can be informed by that. And and I've said this to others, that we've got a lot of heat on us in this particular budget process. So we have to make sure that when we're saying to people this is how we're going to be spending our budget money, that we're funding places that have sustainability plans, that we're funding places that all of our priorities sort of mesh, so that we're, as a community, moving in the same direction. So any information along those lines is definitely going to be helpful. Thank you.
Councillor Redette?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wonder, you're saying you're purchasing food because you need more food. A number of years, maybe 2-3 years ago, God rest her soul, my sister had sent down a transport load of food to the Agape Center. We shared with St. Vincent de Paul and a couple others. That food, she done this once a month up north, so so she was very active there. The thing is that general foods that these people have, this food is called shelf life, and if it's 6 months to go, it's not worthwhile for them sending it out to the stores, have to bring it back in. So just a phone call, and they more or less donate that food. It's a mixture of everything, so you don't know what you're going to get. But it's a mixture of cookies and crackers, and what it does is they just pay the transportation. So when she sent that load down the last time, it cost her $8,000. So she had a 53-foot tractor trailer load of food. So that's over $100,000 in food to come down with it. So what I'm saying is, did you ever look at that potential of doing? Because that's what they do up north also, to assist them to offset some of the cost of food. Touch base with General Foods and see if you're available to, when they have the stuff, to go up and pick it up.
We do receive some reclamation food from some distribution centers. We have to be very careful. We do follow, the health and safety guidelines as well.
You're right. Yes,
and
yes,
we have received food from that type of source that has been contaminated in terms of bugs, and we have to be careful because we do store a lot of food. But we do get reclamation.
I'm not talking about contaminated food here.
No.
I'm talking about food that has a shelf life of 6 months, and they don't want to send it out because they're just going to have to take it back in 6 months if it don't sell. This way here with a food bank, it turns over quicker, and you get the food needed to help the people out there. So I think that maybe the board should look at something like this to see whether or not they can offset some of those costs. And again, I will go back to you know, you do great service, there's no doubt about it. But, you know,